Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi and here I like to talk about luxury beauty. Today we're talking about the new Pat McGrath Labs Divine Blush Duos and the Divine Glow Highlighters. So on her website, there are a whole bunch of different customizable sets where you get to choose the colors you want. I picked up one of those sets where you get to choose 2 blush duos and a highlighter. And I picked up Venusian Sunrise, which is what I have on at this moment, and Aphrodite Amore. So these are the 2 blush duos. And we're gonna look at these both as separate shades and mixed together. And then for the highlighter, I picked up Lunar Allure, which is the lightest of the 4 highlighters. There are 6 blush duos, 4 highlighters that are out. The blush duos are definitely limited edition. They are 9.7 grams of product, 18-month shelf life, and they're made in Italy. The highlighters do not say limited edition on the website. According to Instagram, some posts have said limited edition with the highlighters mentioned there, and others have not. So I'm unclear as to whether they are permanent or limited edition, but I believe they are going to be around for a while. The blush duos, however, are definitely limited edition. So these are 4.6 grams of product, 18-month shelf life, also made in Italy. We do have the compact, the same as the other blushes. And I do have her complete line of the permanent blushes, the ones that came out last year. So we will be swatching and comparing these duos with those as well. So before we move on to the swatches, let's go over some demos and talk a little bit about these blush duos. So in the first demo here, I am showing you Aphrodite Amore, and we're looking first at the left side of the blush. This is the side that has like the rays on there, not the flower petals. And it's a really beautiful, warm pink shade. And then we have a little bit more of a nude with a touch of mauve for the roses on the right side. So I'm showing you each of those separately. So if you did want to use these blushes separately, you could definitely do that, because one of the great things about the pan sizes and the way this design is, both shades have a large enough area to get a blush brush in without interfering with another shade. So that's definitely something that's really well thought out with this. I think a lot of blush duos, it's hard to not mix them together. So this is, I think that's really well done. These blushes are very pigmented. If you're familiar with the permanent blushes from her line, the formula seems to be the same here. They are highly pigmented. They go on beautifully. They blend beautifully. Some of these, as you notice, putting these on, they're pretty pigmented when you put it on. So you do want to be a little cautious with some of the shades to make sure that, it's a lot harder to take off some of the blush than it would be to end up, adding more. So after looking at both sides together, then we're looking at them mixed. So you can see what the shades look like mixed on the face. You can see it's not a huge difference in my opinion. I didn't remove the previous shades underneath. So, mixed, I toned it down a little bit. I wiped it off a little bit and added some powder on top, but you could still see a little bit of the shades underneath, but to give you a general idea of what they look like mixed. And as we're looking at the Lunar Allure highlighter here, with the first application, we're going much more softly with it. So you can kind of see, this is actually going to be our medium depth level of application with the small Sonyuji Hinoki brush. And then on the other side, we're using the Refer 17. This is something I actually use for cream blushes, but I wanted to see how the blush looked buffed in, because if you're looking for a glowy blush for the summer, this is actually a great highlighter to buff in, kind of wipe off any excess or put a little powder on top if you want to tone it down a little bit, and then add your blush on top to get kind of this ethereal glow under the blush. So you can see how disco ball-y you can get your blush to be with a buffing motion if you use something more dense like this brush. So you definitely have a huge range that you can get with this highlighter, and I think it's a really beautiful highlight. I really like the shade. I like the sheen. I love the variety of depth levels that you can get with this. And in the second demo, we are looking at the Venusian Sunrise, And I have to say, as soon as I put this on my face, it reminded me right away of the Suku Melting Powder blushes. They have shades number 1 and 2 are a purple and a pink. And no, the tones on these are not going to be exactly the same as those. However, you know, wearing them mixed, it really reminded me a lot of that combination, which I really love to do with the Suku blushes. So we're definitely going to be comparing those in a minute. But you can see that the lavender, even when you put your brush over it, that shade has a touch of pink in it itself. So just swiping over just the lavender, it almost looks like, if you're looking at the brush tips, it almost looks like I have a little pink mixed into there, but it is definitely 100% the lavender side of the blush. You can see on the cheek, it's not going to be overly gray or blue of a lavender. You definitely have some pink in there, which makes it very wearable on its own. And that's one of the things that distinguishes it from the Suku blush, which can look a little ashy on certain skin tones. So this has a little bit of pink in it. It's a little bit, you know, it has a little bit more warmth to it than the Suku shade as well. And then you have this gorgeous warm pink, or well, it's a warm, cool pink, but it complements, it's much warmer compared to lavender, and they complement each other so well. So wearing these separately or together is beautiful. The lavender on its own is definitely a very light shade. So, you know, if you're going for a lighter cheek look, this is great. But I personally really love these two shades mixed together. And you can see with the Lunar Allure application here, we're going with our lightest application using the Omnia Gold fan brush. And the fan brush is definitely depositing less of the product. And you can see how it builds up. But you can see that this highlighter really illuminates beautifully, but yet it doesn't really emphasize any fine lines or anything. So I think it's just, it gives you this really stunning. Honestly, I think Lunar Allure is the perfect name because it looks like a sparkling moon. If you're looking at like photography of, you know, the moon and stuff like that, sometimes you'll see one of those pictures of like a glowing moon that looks lit from within, and you can see even a little sparkle of the dust and so forth. That's what this really does look like to me, and I really love it. So I think it's a really great ethereal glow. Let's go ahead and move on to some arm swatches. All right, so we're going to start with the blushes. We'll look at the highlighter afterwards, but this here is Aphrodite Amore. We're going to start with the two shades separately here. So I'm going to put this kind of right here. So that is the left and that is the right. And then let's go ahead and mix them together. So that is the two of them mixed. So you can see that this left shade here definitely comes off a little bit cooler than it looks in the pan. You can see there's a little bit, the sheen to it is a little bit more white. Let me just add a second layer so you can see that just a little bit better. And then we'll add a second layer of this. And by the way, I am cleaning my fingers on a microfiber cloth on my lap in between the swatches. So there is no contamination, and that's mixed. So I think all three shades are beautiful. I have to say these particular shades complement my skin tone really well. So this is going to be a shade that I use a ton. I really, really love it. Moving on to Venusian Sunrise. And let's take a look at these separately. I'm going to just leave a little space in between. And you can see in the swatch here how much pink is truly in that lavender shade. It's really, really stunning. And I think adding that pink in there really makes it much more wearable on its own. And if you want a cooler pink than what's included, mix a little of the lavender in and you can see how it's really just going to be a cooler pink with a touch of, almost like a touch of blue in it. It doesn't even look that purple at that time. So these are the two blush duos. Let's take a look at the permanent shades. But first, let's look at those Suku shades I talked about. All right, so the ones I was talking about, this is the Suku Melting Powder Blush in 01. You can see right off the bat that this is going to be cooler and more gray than the one in the Pat McGrath Duo. We're going to put these this way so you can see the difference. This doesn't even look purple in comparison. This looks more like a periwinkle cornflower blue compared to the lavender in the Venusian Sunrise. This is the pink shade 2 in the Melting Powder Blush. I'm gonna put that right next to it here. And you can see that this shade is gonna be deeper and it's gonna be, you know, a little bit warmer as well. There's a little bit more berry in it compared to the one in the Pat McGrath. Now I'm gonna mix these two so you can see what they look like mixed. So let's put those here. And you can see that mixed, the vibe is actually very, very similar. Let me go ahead and swatch the mixed right below it here so you can see that. I mean, look at that. These colors are so different, but together they look much more similar mixed than you might expect. This is definitely gonna be a little bit cooler, a little bit more blue, but overall you do have a very similar vibe on the cheeks. So if you are somebody who missed out on these or you haven't purchased Suku is hard to get, and you were looking for something like that, I think this Pat McGrath Duo in Venusian Sunrise is a really good option. Keep in mind, these Suku shades are permanent. So if you miss out on the Pat McGrath, the Suku blushes here, the Melting Powder in 1 and 2, are permanent products. So even if they're out of stock, they'll come back. They've been going out of stock pretty easily, especially that purple shade. And then recently, Suku had a couple limited edition blushes. These are in their other blush line, the Pure Color blushes. This is shade 131. We're going to take a look at this purple. This is actually a highlighter here on this end. So let's put this one, put it down here, I guess. You can see how light and soft that is, but you can see that it's definitely got a little bit more pink in it than the Suku 01. And then we also have 130, which was released at the same time, which is going to be pink. So let's compare that. You can see this is definitely much more of a raspberry shade. It's more vibrant than those in the Pat McGrath or in the other Suku blushes. Let's mix these as well. All right, so here are these mixed. And you can see this pink is just so much deeper than the lavender shade in 131 that it's really much more, it's much more pink with almost like you have more of an iridescent lavender sparkle in there compared to having more lavender color in there, if that makes sense, because this shade is just so light. But these are, I think, some very good comparisons here for Venusian Sunrise. So I'm really loving all of these. All right, so these are the Pat McGrath permanent blushes. This one here is Flirtatious. I have to say this one I absolutely love. I wear this one a lot, even though you can't really tell. But it's a light shade. Let's go ahead. We'll put some of these down here vertically so you can kind of see how they compare. You can see that this is going to be much more nude. There's a little bit more brown in it than the shade in Aphrodite Amour. But those are probably going to be the closest shades to each other. Next, we have Nymphette. This is another one that I really like, but I have to say I do wear Flirtatious more than this one. And here's Nymphette. And this one has a little shimmer in it. You can see a little reflect there. It's a really beautiful shade. It's going to be kind of close to using these two mixed. I think that's pretty close. So it's closest to the mixed shades of Aphrodite Amour. This one here is Divine Rose. And I mean, this is a beautiful classic shade in my opinion. Let's put that right there. And you can see it's a little bit deeper and a little bit rosier than the second shade in Aphrodite Amour, but not quite as pink as the shade on the left. So again, when we're looking at this, these are the part on the rays is here and the part on the flowers is here. So left and right. Next we have Cherish, which is going to be a much more brighter, vibrant pink. And look at that. That's going to be actually closest to the Suku. The Suku is a little bit warmer. This was 130 in the Suku. But you can see here that it's going to be much more vibrant than anything in Venusian Sunrise or Aphrodite Amour. Next we have Nude Venus. I really like this one. You can see I've worn this one quite a bit actually. And let's see here, where can we'll move these ones up. This isn't going to go with Venusian Sunrise. But you can see this one has more of a bronzy look to it. It's going to be warmer than the right-hand shade in Aphrodite Amour. It's got a little more brown and warmth to it. Like there's almost like a little bit more orange in there as well. And this one has a little bit of shimmer. Desert Orchid, one that I didn't really think I was going to like originally, but found that it's really a beautiful shade to just use a little bit of. You can see it's going to be bronzy, more brown. Doesn't really go with any of the ones I picked up. And the last three that I have don't go with any of the ones I picked up, but this is Paradise Venus, another really beautiful shade. I think this is probably the most unique shade in the blush range. You can see it's almost got like a little bit of clay and terracotta and a little maroon in there. It's really a more complex shade. I think it's very stunning. This is Love Struck. So this is going to be a really deep, more magenta pink. Let's put that one here. And you can see how deep and vibrant that is. It's got more red in it than any of these. And then Electric Bloom looks a little bright and scary in here. A gorgeous coral flush though on the cheeks. Absolutely love this. I do have to use it more sparingly, but I think it's a stunning shade. So this is a coral with a touch more electric orange to it than a true coral in my opinion. So these are my comparisons for the blushes. Let's move on to the highlighter. All right, so for the highlighter, we're going to swatch this on my hand here. This is Lunar Allure, and you can see that it is, we'll put this right in the middle. You can see that it is a vibrant white with a touch of white gold in it. Look at that. And it made me think of OMG from Ilamasqua. So let's start with that. This one is a little bit more champagne. Look at that. You can see how much warmer it is. There's a little bit more yellow gold in there. But I do have to say that the finish on those, is pretty similar. Not necessarily texturally when you swatch it, but on the face, they both give you a similar level of radiance. Then we have the Opal shade from Makeup by Mario. This is one of my favorites. Super silky, looks super white on here, but it actually does have a touch of white gold as well. But you can see this is going to be a little bit brighter than the Pat McGrath. The Pat McGrath, surprisingly, can actually, obviously you can buff that in and get it super bright, but it can also be pretty natural in your skin. I think the Makeup by Mario can too. It's definitely one of my favorites. But this is definitely a much whiter shade. Makeup by Mario, there are more shades to this line, just like there are with the Pat McGrath, but they are much more gold, whereas this is much more white. Then we have the Sisley. This is the Fido blush in 6 Shimmer. To say I don't love this shade. I actually don't love this particular highlighter, but it's a lot peachier, more skin tone like. This one's not a favorite. And then this is one of the new ones from Bobbi Brown, which I've really been loving. This is Quartz Glow. And this is going to be a little bit more golden. We're going to put it right here at the base. So you can kind of see, it's got a little bit more yellow gold in it. But again, this one is going to be more similar in texture and finish. Really like both of these. And then one of my favorite highlighters of all time, this is the Chanel Duo de Camellias. Let's swatch them separately and mixed. So these are the 3 shades separate and mixed. Let's see here. I'll put that there separate, and you can see that's closer to the Makeup by Mario, but there's a little more gold. Here's the gold side. Okay, and here is the mixed shade, which you can see is still going to be a little more gold than the Pat McGrath. And last up, this is the Guerlain Meteorites Pearl Dust palette. Absolutely love this palette. I wish they would bring it back. We're going to take a look at Pearly Gold, which looks white in the pan, but is actually a gold shade. We're going to put this right here. You can see how much more yellow that is. So one of the great things about Lunar Allure is it's almost like a, it's like it has champagne in there mixed with a little bit of more nude skin tone and some white. It's kind of all of those mixed together So you kind of get the best of all worlds depending on how the light reflection hits it. So I really like it because you can see when I turn my hand a certain way, it kind of blends into the skin of my hand. That's kind of more that nude champagne vibe in there. But then when the light hits it straight on, it looks much more white and shimmery. And I love that aspect of it. I think that's one of the things that makes this highlighter unique. And I have to say, you know, it's really beautiful. I'm really happy I picked up both of these duos and the highlighter. I was very tempted to get all of the blush duos, but I am trying to, you know, I want to use the ones that I have more. So I'm trying to be good. So I refrained from picking up all of them, limited myself to just two, and I'm really happy with the two I picked. I think they are absolutely stunning, and I love the way that they perform and the particular color combinations that she came out with. I'm so happy to have a lavender blush that doesn't read too blue. I think it's a really stunning addition. So I hope this was helpful, and again, I think you can't go wrong with these blush duos. I absolutely love them. Again, the blush duos are limited edition. I believe the highlighters are permanent, but they are all items worth checking out in my opinion. And I definitely recommend looking at the customizable sets on her website. But these products are also available at Sephora as well. I did see that not all of the blush duos were there, but the majority of them were. So just a note. And I hope this was helpful. I'll see you very soon. So have a wonderful day.